Right, first of all, this video is really meant for Autotesters. Using the Type 9 gearbox, I'm going to try and show you how to make a gearbox that only has first and reverse. Forward for first, backwards for reverse, nothing else at all. So I can't think of any other form of motorsport that this would work for, so primarily Autotesters. Okay, let's get on with it. Right, so first of all, how these gearboxes work normally. This is a standard gearbox, and this one is one that's been converted to first and reverse only. So if you look in the standard gearbox, you can see the reverse idler down there. And get the torch on it. Right, so there's the reverse idler. So when you put it into reverse gear, it moves the reverse idler forward and engages reverse. Okay, I know it's not quite in, but you get the gist. Now, to make it so that it works without doing that, what you've got to do is fix the reverse. Hang on, I'll show you one I've fixed over here. So we've fixed the reverse, we've taken all the lever out and reverse idler can't move now. We have to cut it down a bit at the back, by the way. Normally they are like that. We have to chop this bit off, as you can see there. Okay, so when it, instead of going into second gear, this slider and get the torch to work. The slider moves straight into reverse, so it's engaged the reverse gear now. I don't know if you can see that. Yep. Now, reverse gear is engaged. Now, while it's in that position, it should, see on this box, line up with these dog teeth and the synchro and make second gear reverse. So therefore you should be stuck in two gears. So what we do, as you can see on the synchro rings there, is take all the dog teeth off and take all the teeth off the synchro rings, so that when it goes into reverse gear on the idler, this reverse gear isn't working. Oh god, a bit of a muck there. Lovely. Okay, does that make sense? The problem with this is it doesn't all quite line up and keep out of the way. So to do this, you need to make sure that the main shaft moves back a bit that way, because if you don't, you end up selecting first gear and reverse gear at the same time and you end up without a neutral. You can see this one has got a neutral on it. That's in neutral. It's hard to do this with nobody holding the phone. That goes into first, neutral, reverse. So this is what all the gears look like when you're taking them out. Obviously this is a mucky old one, but it gives you an idea of what it's like. And we're going to try and move that main shaft further that way. Now, if we come over here, this is how the main shaft is normally fitted at that side. So that goes on there. I'll take that off. Whoops, point the camera out even. And then there's an oil scrape ring that goes up to the bearing there. That comes off. And then this is the first gear. So we want to make this go on further on that way. So what I do is 2 or 3 things. First of all is we grind the teeth off there, which is where the oil scraping normally locates. That comes around. Right, so we've lost a bit of width there. Then the other thing we do is, this is a standard first gear, and this is one that's cut down. So basically what I do is take that edge off, just put it in the lathe and then get an angle grinder cutting disc and cut that off. Simple as that. Nothing fancy. So it ends up being that way. And the reason we do that is because we're moving it closer to here, it will catch on there. Now the other thing we do as well is have these machined off so there's not as much of a ridge there, and it's more or less flat. Okay. Then instead of putting the oil scrape ring back on, I've just got a load of these I can't remember what they call them, spacer rings, washers. And instead of putting that on, which is that thick, we put 1 or 2 of them. You might have to mess about. I think these are 1mm. Yeah, I might have to mess about till you get the right thickness. It seems to be different every time I do it, but the one I use in this one I think it's going to be 1mm. So we'll put this gear back on. So we've got the synchro ring as normal in with the spring already fitted. Pop that back on. Put this gear on. Then I'm going to use one of those. And then this one, it's got a bearing in already and it's already been chamfered down. I know this looks mucky, but it's not, it's just gone this colour because I had it soaking too long with some degreaser. So that goes on that way up, and then it needs tapping down, which I can't do with 2 hands and hold the phone, so I'll switch this off for a minute. So that's tapped down nicely, and as you can see at the other side there's a nice gap there, which is fine. Freely. So because we've got rid of this oil scrape ring, we've got a gap at this side before we put the circlip in. So again, I just get a load of these shim washers, space it out. the circlip back in, which I can't find any more shim washers now, and I should have enough. Oh, there they are. I think I need one more and I don't know what I've done with it, but you get the gist. I'll come back for the next bit and I'll put that ring in. So that snap ring's nicely in place now and nicely spaced out, and everything turns freely. So I just need to pop it in the vise next and work on the other side. Okay, so next job is we need to put this reverse slider on here and put the blocker bars in. Now normally in an ordinary gearbox that goes that way around, and then when it's in neutral the reverse idler slides into there and that goes first and second. But because we fix the idler over here, we need to put that upside down, so it needs to go that way around. So this is the way I do the blocker bars. I know people do them different. First of all, we've got to remember that we need the springs going the opposite way. So that spring's actually going that way around. So I've got a spring ready to go the other way around. The other thing is, the normal blocker bars are like that. Now, they'll be fine. They'll work. Their standard forward ones work really well. But I've got hold of some of these, and these are solid. And instead of having the groove all the way across, they just have, where the spring seats, they just have a little groove in the middle, which means that that shouldn't twist one way or the other quite so badly. There's only a groove in one of them. The other two, sorry, don't have any grooves in at all. So you've got to get the right one. So I'm gonna put that in and let's hope it goes on easily. This is how I do it. Make sure the spring's right, make sure the gap's there. One in there. The one with the groove goes in this one. Okay, in the spring, if I can get it. Yep, that's in. That goes in there. And then I do this. You got somebody to help you, it's a lot easier, but it's gonna be awkward. Oh, there it goes. And then just let it drop down till the blocker bars spring out. Don't be tempted to pull it back up, otherwise it'll fall apart. And then the other spring goes on this way around, because I checked which way it was the other one. That goes in there, that goes in there. Right, that's in. Then the synchro ring that I've taken the teeth off. You can see that one's got the teeth off and that one hasn't, so we'll get rid of that one and we'll use the one with the teeth off. That just locates on there. That's located in the blocker bars. Then the second gear that I've taken those teeth off is there, but there is something else you have to do to second gear. Normally on second gear there's a little spring that stops the slider blocking in. I don't know if you can see that. I take that off when I'm doing a forward gearbox just to get another millimetre of throw into reverse gear. This is filthy, but never mind. It'll do for the demonstration. I'll just give it a clean. Might as well stay together. So yeah, as you can see, I've taken the dog teeth off there so it's smooth, so that when this engages over there it can turn freely. Now you could, if you wanted, take all these teeth off, but I quite like these teeth on because if anything happens, it stops that going too far, and you don't want it to go too far. So, right, next bit, that goes on there. And then these locating things go on as in a standard gearbox. That goes on there. Right, we can try it now. So that should be first gear. Yep, that's first gear. That's reverse gear. So that seems to work alright. So you can see that isn't engaging second gear anymore. It's just ready to reverse, to engage with the reverse idler, which is fixed in that position. So that'd be neutral. That's first. And then when it goes up, it will engage with that. And we've got reverse gear. If that makes sense. So next, you can put back on third gear and the synchro thing that goes on the top of here, which you can see on this box over here. So yeah, we've just put, that's the gear we've put on. So that's third gear, and this is his synchro hub with the top taken off. You can put them back on and it's not a problem, but to save weight I took a third gear like that and I ground it down to like that, so you can see that's the same. So I can put that on there, and then the bit that goes on the top which is basically one of them, I've ground that all down and got it to one of those. So that goes on there. It helps if you do it right way, doesn't it, Stephen? That's it. And then, of course, the ready snap goes on top, like that. She's in, and that's your main shaft done. Reverse, first, neutral. So our next job is to assemble a gearbox. As I said before, I put lots of spacers in there and you have to shim it back. I'm not going to show you how to do that, but it's basically you cut that off there flush and then you space it backwards and forwards to get it right, and you basically need about, I think it's less than 1 millimetre shim between there and the side. You don't have to do any machining on this because it all moves it back. Now the other thing you might say is, if it moves it back, what about the front end? Well, the front end, which is this bit, sits in the input shaft on that bearing like that. But it can come out quite a bit and it still locates. But what I tend to do as well is on the back of here, let's put that in there so I can hold it in. That locates in there, and as you can see it goes quite a long way in. But come on out. So if you take the rings that go in the lay shaft in there when you build the little roller bearings up, which are these. If you put, I can't remember if I put 2 or 1 in. I think I put 1. I think I put 2 in. And then put the bearing back in. Yeah, it just comes to the edge. So that's basically moved the bearing back that much, which is probably not far off what you've moved the main shaft back, so it all locates nicely. So we need to put the needles in here, which I'm sure you all knew now to do. I use these longer ones. Bit of assembly paste. This is great stuff because it's really gooey. We want, with the long ones, you just need 1 ring in first. Assembly paste. And then 21 of these. Let's get them in as quick as I can, then you don't get bored. I'm not counting them, they'll fit. The last one's always quite tight to go in. But the beauty of this assembly paste is the needles don't fall out like they do with grease, just stay there. Just so much easier than all the faff with having that dummy lay shaft inside. I need to tap the last one in. That's tight. And just drop the lay shaft in and make sure. Yep, they've all gone in. And a bit more of this on top. Whoops, not too much. Pop that in. There, look, we've all stayed there, they don't move. Put the shaft in. That's fine. So we can drop that in the bottom of the casing now. Just leave it there. Make sure that's pushed through. Not through the hole, of course. Next thing we need to do is gasket. I always put loads of this on as well as a gasket. Bolt and braces. Gasket drops on. These are gaskets I make myself, by the way, one of them plotter things. Look them up. Now, when you're doing this for the first time, you're probably better off not putting the paste on it, because you end up having to take it in and out loads of times till you get the spacing right on the main shaft. I think I've got it right. I might have to take it out yet, you never know. Right, I've already got that bearing in there with the 2 bushes in. This is a different input shaft that I showed you earlier. That one was a bit crappy. So if we bob that into there, don't push it all the way in. Then this just slide on. Now what I tend to do is put one of these short ones in there, another one in there, slack. And you can just wiggle that in. Tighten it up. Right, I'm going to put this goes for Type 9 gearboxes anytime anyway. There's a hole, you probably know this, but there's a drain hole there for the oil to run in. Just make sure that circlip leaves a gap there so the oil can get through. Then you really need to put this on next. I'll turn it round, because as soon as you start moving anything backwards and forwards, this comes out, and it's not so bad with a forward reverse box, but with an ordinary Type 9 the blocker bars can come out a third, fourth. I haven't cleaned this actually, I forgot about it. We'll just bob it in for now, clean it later. Bolts in. Put those in place. Well, it's missing reverse, so it should be okay. Put it over. Right, that's just gone in, as you can see. Right. My battery went on the camera just then, so I've actually put this a bearing like this inside there. I've already done it, which you've missed. I'm not taking it out again to show you that. It's just standard Type 9. You need to put that ring on there next. Now what I normally do, or what you can do, is put your 5th gear on there. That's where that goes. But I've actually cut down the 5th gear, so that's just one of them ground down. Take a little grinding. You don't have to do that, because the 5th gear will go on quite happily, but it's just a bit lighter and a bit neater. So I put that on there next. And then tighten the 5th gear nut up onto there. Now normally, to tighten the 5th gear up, you torque it to now 90 pound-foot, I think it is. And to do that, you lock it in 2 gears, so you lock it in reverse and you lock it in first or whatever. But because this is just a first and reverse box, I can't lock it in 2 gears. So I just use my impact gun. It's a small impact gun and it's not too powerful. If you get the really powerful ones, you will tighten it up too much and you break your lace shaft. I've done it before. So what I tend to do is just put a clutch on there, like that. Use this impact gun and just keep going until it stops turning. It's stopped there, so that's tight. And then hammer and chisel, knock the edge over to lock the nut. So the next thing, well, you don't have to do anything because there's a circlip on there holding that on, but when you put the 5th gear on, this is a mucky one actually. I don't know if you can see, it's got a little ridge around there which the circlip fits in nicely. I like to put that on because it just gives an extra bit of security in case that circlip comes on there, especially after you've spaced it out with all these shim washers. So I tend to put that on there, and then if you take another circlip and you can actually fit it in that groove that's just meant to be an oil groove behind the 5th gear, and just leave that on there. It just adds a bit of security. Like I say, you don't have to do it if you don't want. I need to take it off and clean it, but I'll do it later. So basically, you've done the hard work. There, it's in neutral there. That's first gear. And that's reverse gear. So the next thing is to set up the selector.